substance of what he is saying. He's saying, in fact, what we are witnessing today is the creation of something which is a moral citizenship. Not a legal citizenship, not an objective definition, but something which is informal. So I prefer the informal citizenship than the moral, because moral is a critical term. It's, many meanings could be put in moral. In the Dutch society, and the perception of the Dutch society, the social perception, we are a liberal society. So don't come to us to teach us what is a liberal society. This is the very definition of the Dutch society. And France, the country of the human rights, don't teach us, don't lecture us on what is the meaning of enlightenment. It's coming from here. So we are facing, you know, a psychology which is a psychology of denial. There is no problem with us. And there is no problem with us, the problems are you. This is the binary vision of all this discussion. And in fact, the informal, what he calls moral citizenship, is not only you are asked to get the passport, to have lived for a while in the country, to get the passport, to speak the language. Now what we want to know is how do you teach and educate your kids? Which is the language at home? What is your notion of freedom? And when you want to enter the society, as it is, you know, this test on citizenship and entering, some people were saying this test in Germany, if you were to ask the Pope to pass the exam, he will fail. Because some of the questions are moral questions. So for example, we want to know if you Muslims coming from these countries where otherness is so obvious. I'm going to show you a picture where a woman is kissing a woman, and we'll see the reaction. If you react in a way which you are shocked, you cannot be integrated. But if you are not shocked, that's fine, very good, I like it, that's it. What is the level of this understanding that we can live together? It's on this that we can differentiate between who is inside and who is outside. So I think that the point here is questioning not only your status, but your way of thinking, your morality, your limits, your ethics. And if we feel that it could be at odds with what we think is liberal, it means that you are not integrable. One is completely wrong. How many Europeans, indigenous Dutch people, wouldn't be happy with the way we are portraying the Dutch society through this picture? They say, this, okay, it's here, but it's not us. It's not only us. This is one dimension of our freedom, but it's not our, and some would even be shocked about being asked this question. So to reduce some questions, not in fact because it's defining what the Dutch society is, but what we don't want in what you are. So it's a question not about us, it's a question about you. So it's defining citizenship in a perception is this is our way to understand ourselves, but in fact not really. It's to understand ourselves as different from you. So it's a differential defensive self-definition. It could be problematic, but it happens a lot in our political discussion. There's, as I told you, to read the legal system in a protective way, to understand our culture in a protective way. This is us, but it's the way we define us through the way we look at you. It's not us, but we know it's not you. It's not exactly us, but we know for sure it's not you. And I think that here we are reaching something which is in fact formal and informal, the unspoken citizenship based on a specific notion of our nation. And you can't. Now, you know, after 25 years working on the ground on that, if we are not touching this, I think we are not going to get it. Because law are going to be used in a way which could be very, very discriminatory. There is something which is clearly structural discrimination in the way we use law if we are not ready to speak about two things, which is the narrative and power. Who has the authority to do this? Who is this majority you are talking about? And what is the narrative we are talking about? Power and narrative. And very often, they are the same people. People who are writing the narrative of a nation are the people who have the power. And we have to tackle this issue as something which is critical in our discussion, not to avoid this. And I agree with Chandra Muzaffar, speaking from Malaysia. I see in our discussion about West and Islam and this dialogue is all fine, but there is only one dirty word that we don't want to speak about is power. And at the end, it has to do with power. So I'm not saying that, you know, power, it's not a dirty word first, and I'm talking about power in a way that I'm asking the citizen to get a sense of what it means empowerment, to become the subject of your history within a society, to be able to speak for yourself, to be able to challenge an old narrative that is shaped now against you. So it's to challenge the narrative. So it's a positive struggle of understanding that to write a narrative against people is bad for the people who are creating this narrative. It's not bad only for you. You know, when you look at a racist, it's not bad for you only to face a racist that doesn't like, for example, the art. If I'm facing someone who doesn't like the art, it's not only bad for me, it's bad for him. I have to challenge his understanding of humanity because it's bad for him to be a racist. If you understand that you don't victimize yourself, you try to get an answer for both of you. The oppressor and the oppressed. Not only the oppressed, and to idealize your status of victims. I think it's not the right answer. I'm very, very worried about the people who are idealizing the posture of being a victim. Because when you worship victim, anything is possible. Because you are a victim. A victim can oppress. Because he's a victim. So the oppression of the victims is very, anyway, it's another story. Let me come to my point here, and to say here that this moral citizenship that he's talking about, and the informal dimension of citizenship that has to do with the way we are creating or shaping or constructing this narrative. It's important, and all the discussion that we have now in the West, in European countries, about multiculturalism is failing. Remember that Angela Merkel, when she said that, she was responding to the president, and the president said something which was said by the President Barack Obama, saying Islam is a German religion. What does it mean, a German religion? It means we have so many German citizens that are Muslims that it's our religion. Islam is a French religion. Islam is a European religion, it's an American religion, it's a Western religion, period. I think that we have to stop with this. But he created a controversy saying, no, Islam is not. It's the religion of the other. And even though we have citizens, and then it started by saying it's failing because they are self-segregating themselves. Cameron added this, Sarkozy said it, and they are all repeating this. Get Wilders is saying it. It's a common narrative, and in Denmark we have exactly the same. Now we have a far-right party which is gaining ground even in Sweden. Be careful, it's dangerous. So after 1 year you have 20 seats in the parliament, something like that. Yes, I think it's very, very fast, the process. And the most dangerous thing is that the rhetoric that they were using in the past is now used by all the classical parties. It's as if we can talk about it in such a way, and it's dangerous. Now, having said that, I think that this is where we have to tackle this dimension. And to understand that the whole discussion about citizenship, it's about the status, but also three dimensions. The first one is about our memory, the memory. And remember when the Pope was saying, talking about the roots of Europe, saying it's Christian and Greek, he's not saying, he's saying something which is very deep. It's scientifically wrong, but psychologically he's sending a message. This is us. This is us. And by the way, it was not only putting the Muslims outside. He was putting the Jews, and he was putting anything which has to do with the secular contribution to the creation of the European identities, as if they were not there. You know, you cannot say that Enlightenment was only influenced by Greek philosophy. It was not. And by the way, as I was saying just before coming here, Enlightenment is not about only positive values. Voltaire was an anti-Semite. He was. And he wrote it, and it was, he didn't like it. So he had, so we are selective with the people we like. And selective the same way with the people we don't like, but we don't select the same thing. So we are always selective, and this is why we have to come with this memory. And for me today, it's a very important dimension. The second thing which has to do with this informal citizenship, this culture, is to be able to say, well, what are we talking? What is this culture that we are talking about? This is our culture. What is the French culture? What is, you know, just after 7/7 in Britain, something that was just unbelievable before is, what is Britishness? Britishness. You got the word? What is Britishness? What is to be British, which is not you within me and not me within a discussion about limits and values. Say, are you sure that this is really Britishness, or are you constructing something to know who is not in? And the third thing is values. That is also a very important discussion. So a set of values, as long as you don't agree with these values, you are not part of us. Memory, culture, and values. These are three dimensions that are now to be tackled when we have to speak about citizenship. So I would say that it would be very naive and simplistic to think that when you get the status, you get it all. You have to work on many dimensions. First, for the new citizens and the new European citizens to challenge this self-definition and self-perception. As to memory, as to the culture you are talking about, and as to the values that we are sharing. To be able, for example, you know, my last book is called The Quest for Meaning, Developing a Philosophy of Pluralism. And I'm exactly there. I'm in values. You say, okay, what are you talking about? Why are you putting me outside? And why, for example, it's easier in the common unsaid and conscious to be a Buddhist than to be a Muslim. I'm not sure that the Buddhists are closer to Christianity than the Muslims. But they now, you know, there is a fashion towards, you know, Buddhism is good, Islam is not so good. Not to say anything else. So I think that this is where we are in the discussion. So I would say here that we need to deal with this. And this is why also I'm advocating something which is important for all of us. There will be no European future if we don't reconcile ourselves with the past. We have to teach history. We need to teach history, a common sense of, you know, history with all these memories. Our kids, our children, our students now are disconnected from history, from memory. So they are just trying to deal with something which is starting and happening now. But the sense of history is very important. It's, I would say, a political and moral duty to teach history to our children, to know where they are coming from and where we are going together. And this diversity of the past is so important. So this is where I would say in our discussion on memory is so important. I want to avoid anything which is clashes of memories, to come to a common history of the diversity of memories, and it means that it has to be officially done. The discussion about culture, but you understand it's a two-way process. If you want to create something which is a better understanding of the European culture, I really think that, this is why I'm working on two legs, so to speak. One is really to be critical with this discussion in the West, that sometimes I feel that I want to be, you know, very often when I discuss with people, I say, but you have to show something. It's as if they're, you know, they're putting me outside. And once I was talking with a lawyer, he said, us, you know, in our, I said, why did you put me outside? So there is this out, in and out, us versus them. And my point is, the starting point is the creation of this new we that I was talking about, we as citizens. And it means we objectively, we psychologically, we culturally, we philosophically speaking. It's we, us together. It's how do we get that? And this is why I think we are reaching the 3 L's with the loyalty, is that we are loyal to a common project, is to look much more at the objectives than at the roots. To study the roots, but in the light of the common objective.